Welcome to the last video of 2021. I'm here today again with my friend and fellow Keller Williams agent, Wyatt Kobelan. So Wyatt, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Today, we are going to be talking about our forecasts for the new year. We're going to start with what I consider a couple of fun ones, that being like the UT football. And then we'll definitely move into, we won't spend a whole lot of time on that, but we will move into real estate because that's what we do and that's what I think the value that we could add to those of you who are watching. So anyway, so let's start with UT. I mean, what's it been? 10, 15 years since they've actually had a legitimate contender. They've been through 3, 4 different coaches, all the hype surrounding the new coach and all of the commitments that they've gotten. What is it? In just the last week, on paper, makes the University of Texas football team look like a contender. So before spring practices even begin, Wyatt, what is your forecast for UT football come September of this year?
Hopefully a better season than this last one. So I think we ended with 7 or 8 losses, if I'm not mistaken.
Like that, yeah.
So
pretty heartbreaking.
Not acceptable, honestly. With the amount of money that we put into this program and where we've been before. So I would hope at the very least that next season we get a bowl game.
Okay.
So
you're not making a prediction, you're just giving us a hope? What's your prediction? Are they going to play in a bowl game?
My prediction is that we have a better season and we get a bowl game.
There we go. All right. Well, I'm going to do the counterpoint. You know why? Because just like real estate, there's a California influence on the UT football program, and that's the head coach. Think back, this guy is the golden boy, right? He was handed the head coaching job at USC. The year that he got his first full season, they were ranked in the top 10, and he completely blew it. And then spent, 6 or 7 years under Nick Saban's guidance and sitting over there, with the quarterbacks and all that. I believe that personalities dictate someone's success or failure in life. And I think based on his previous performance is that they're going to be looking for another coach. I hate to say it. I really, really hate to say it because they were able to get, and especially when you got like that Arch Manning is on the horizon. I mean, they got like the #1 quarterback rated in the entire United States, and for him to blow this kind of thing would completely, I think, kind of like take us out of the running for that once-in-a-generation quarterback. But
I mean, we'll see what happens.
All right, well, let's do this. Again, that was the fun piece. Let's talk a little bit about what I think will have an impact not only on current but future real estate, and that's the local city government. I think that all of us can agree at the federal level there is a definite kind of like divide. And based on approval ratings at this point in history, is that the odds are that we'll see a red wave in these midterm elections at the federal level. The question is, this is an interesting statistic, in the city of Austin, although it's not truly a Democrat Republican, but they lean towards it, it's 10-1. 10-1 Democrat to Republican represented in the city council, the mayor and the council members. Yeah. So we have midterms coming up in the city elections. So what would be our forecasts? Will we see any kind of a red wave in Austin? Any kind of like a red increase or anything?
In the Austin area?
In the Austin city government?
No, it'll be Democratic.
You don't think so? You don't think people are getting a little... One of my top YouTube videos was on the Austin homeless crisis. About a year ago, they had homeless people literally living in city parks, living along Lady Bird Lake and all that kind of stuff as a direct result of the city's decision to rescind the camping ban. One of my most recent comments said this: there is nothing compassionate about allowing mentally ill people and drug users to interact with children and tourists. The point is that word compassionate is that I call it an illusion of compassion in some of the policies that have been introduced. In that I think what this city needs, especially as we continue to grow, is we need more, let's call it pragmatic approach And because there are some serious issues that I think confront us if we don't get some kind of handle on affordability. I mean, I did a video not long ago where, I mean, if you ran a business in Lakeway, restaurant, retail, whatever it might be, you probably can't get employees, because in order for that employee, they can't live there. So in order for you to hire an employee, you either got to bus them in, you got to provide some kind of transportation incentive, or what? Not operate your business. I mean, Bee Cave is the same way. They've got no public transportation. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't mean to dominate the conversation. I just hope I get more interaction. What do you think, Wyatt? Do you think that the way that the city government is going right now, that's good for Austin's future?
No. Honestly, I disagreed with some of the policies that were approved recently.
Okay.
And the homeless camping was one of the ones I definitely disagreed with.
Gotcha.
After you saw the death of Haruka Weiser on UT campus, all the increased violence throughout the city, trash all over the sides of the highways, like clearly that policy was just not going to work out. So.
Gotcha. Well, and I think the voters spoke when they had that Proposition B on the ballot and got it reversed. Okay, so let's do this. Let's move away from things that we may not necessarily be the most qualified to talk about. I mean, I'm not a football coach. I'm not a politician. Let's talk about Austin real estate. Let's talk about something we know. Moving into 2022, what's your forecast on what could we expect with home values, ability to buy a house, or anything else related to the housing market? What's your take? What do you think we should? What can we expect?
In my opinion, I would expect that home values will continue to rise, not as dramatically as they did in 2021, but I do think they will still continue to rise. The other thing to consider is the Fed is considering raising the interest rates in 2022. And from what I've read, they're going to do it 3 times this coming year. So that could potentially slow down home price growth. Some probably think that it might drive prices back down. I personally don't feel that way. I feel like with the amount of people moving to Austin continually and the amount of tech growth that we're seeing here, that home prices will continue to rise.
I would definitely agree. I know it was about this time last year when we were kind of beginning to come out of the pandemic and all that it just went, with lack of a better word, completely crazy. Yeah. I mean, like there were examples of houses with 75 offers on them in about the January-February time period of 21. I agree with you. I don't think that's happening. But what I do see happening is the little lull. There was September, October, November. People were a little frustrated with how fast they went up. People were very much frustrated on how difficult it was to actually buy a house. With an approval under $400,000, your options began to decrease dramatically and would force you to, accept the idea of a 45-minute commute back and forth to work. I think that's still going to be the reality. The good news is that from what I see, the builders have definitely ramped up production. I mean, we're seeing, not only in the outlying areas like the east to the Maynard, the Huttos, and south to the Budas, the Kyles, and even further south in Hays County, up north to Liberty Hill, Georgetown, and even up into the Bertram area, huge amount of just production builders cranking out houses, but there still is a demand. And the reason I'm saying all this is that in that September, October timeframe, there were examples of those builders putting houses on the market and not getting multiple offers, because that has become the norm, right? We're now crossing the threshold where that's coming back. In fact, there were some builders who pretty much had a first come, first serve. If you like this house and it's available, you don't have to worry about bidding. That's going away. Most all of them, there's probably, in my mind, only 2 that still have the no bidding, and they may go away if the demand continues. And of course, to your point, the more demand, the higher the price you're going to. Not to mention, what was it I just read about lumber prices have just within the last 5 weeks increased 95%.
Oh, have they? I thought they were coming. I thought they were coming back down. I didn't think they could go any higher.
I just saw that. I mean, something about like supply issues or something with the weather. 95% in 5 weeks. So.
Well, now they know why they're not getting as many offers in homes.
Yeah. Well, you should have locked into that price 2 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago.
Exactly.
But to your point about the interest rates, I mean that's actually. Should have an impact, because clearly if somebody's financing, that's going to reduce your buying power. Mm-hmm. However, how many transactions have taken place in this city just cash without any financing?
Oh, a lot.
You know what I mean? I don't know what the percentages are, but I know there's a lot of folks with money who don't even need to finance. Mm-hmm. So the interest rates may not be a factor. No, certainly you would think would impact more of those more entry-level homes. I mean, the first-time buyers, things like that. Yeah. What about growth? Because not recent, but the Tesla factory, which is, from what I'm understanding, is pretty much close to coming online, which is southeast Austin, and then the announcement for the new Samsung plant up in Taylor, which would be northeast. Both areas of the metro with lower than average median home prices. Mm-hmm. Strategic placement of those factories, yes. But what would be your forecast of continued growth, in those areas?
Oh, I would expect more growth in those areas specifically than in Austin.
Yeah.
I actually was showing some houses in Taylor the other weekend.
Okay.
Didn't come across the Samsung factory. I don't know if it's being built yet or not.
They just announced. I don't even think they cut or started ground yet.
Okay, but that area is already up and coming.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
You see a lot of new builds over there, renovated homes, and the downtown area that I drove through is actually very nice.
They do actually have that. I mean, you compare like the downtown Taylor to downtown Maynard. It's like it's night and day.
Yeah.
I think Maynard had a fire sometime back, but yeah, it's kind of well preserved down there with the train station. And because at one time, if you look at history, Taylor was kind of like an economic powerhouse back in the early part of the 20th century. I mean, as the economy was more agricultural based, Taylor was actually more of an economic powerhouse than Round Rock, Georgetown.
Wow, didn't know that. All right.
But anyway, that was certainly part of the shift from the agriculture to the city there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I certainly agree. But I know at one point Samsung has a factory already in kind of like the outskirts of Austin, kind of Maynard. I'm not sure. I think it's actually Maynard. But at one point, Maynard was attractive price points. I mean, $250,000 brand new house. Yeah. Anymore, that's $450. Mm-hmm. So maybe part of their thinking was if they moved even further out to Taylor, would be able to attract more employees. I mean, I would think, but
potentially.
Yeah.
And probably just also more space out in Taylor.
No, absolutely. Yeah, less demand, of course. I mean, that changes rapidly. I mean, what was it? I was driving through Hutto the other day. It's like it's all fields right now, but with all those builders out there, it's like you look at that in 5-10 years, it's going to be like Pflugerville looks today.
Oh yeah.
So, anyway, anything else? I mean, so we're kind of predicting prices going up. We're kind of predicting maybe a slight slowdown with the increase in interest rates. Anything else that potential buyers need to be aware of? What about appreciation? Because this comes up a lot, especially like on a new build, where in order to even have a shot at that, I got to pay more than what they're listing it for. Is that some buyers tend to think, well, why should I pay more for it? I mean, if it's going to be worth less, in the future, if prices do come down. What are your thoughts on appreciation in this area? Should that even be a concern?
Yeah, I think that should always be a concern. Anytime that you're investing, there's a chance that it doesn't go favorably. But if you look at the Austin market over the last few years, it's continually trended up, and especially when COVID started, 2020, 2021, they saw record growth. Absolutely. My prediction is worst case scenario that your money would stay relatively even.
Yeah.
So you might not see any appreciation, But I don't think that would continue for a span of years. It could be an anomaly. 1 year, it's possible.
Let me ask you this: when would that even apply? When would that even matter? It only matters if you're trying to sell the house.
Exactly.
And if you're staying in that house 20 years, what difference does it make in 2 years?
It's like they say with stocks, buy and hold.
There you go. Absolutely. So anyway, just this different way of thinking.
I think long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And it certainly, I mean, it looks very positive in the long term, here in the Austin area. Anything else you can think of? Anything else we want to add to our forecast? I mean, do we foresee anything happening that could? I mean, here's an example. I was thinking about this earlier. What was it? It'd be 3 years ago, late 2019. We were coming off a record number of consecutive months of growth. Right? The economy was like on fire. What could possibly slow it down? And of course, 2 months later, it's like we're completely shut down because of the virus. Yeah. Now, those are things we can't predict. But as we are trying to come out of this thing, because we've had glimpses of it, I think, right? But these different variants kind of slow it down a little bit and all that. Once we finally come out of that, is there anything that might be lurking out there that may threaten the economic growth? Or are we going to see a roaring 20s like they did in the 20th century? Or is there something going to stop it?
I don't think so. I think with FDIC insured deposits and everything, that people's money's safe in the banks and the stock market. I could potentially see like the devaluation of the dollar being an issue with the rise of cryptocurrencies. And the fact that our debt ceiling keeps on increasing and increasing. But who knows, really? So
yeah, that's a good point. All right, then. Well, again, thank you for stopping by, and I really enjoyed the interaction because it makes me think, and I value your opinion, on these things, and I hope those who are watching, gain some value. Anyway, so that's it. That's our predictions for the coming year. The good thing about YouTube is this is going to be posted, so you can actually come back in a year from now and kind of see how close we were in our predictions. So anyway, so if you like this video, check out this other one that I did. Anyways, that's it. So all right, so yeah, we can turn this stuff off. I don't know.